Hey guys, KRX50 here with another review. This time I'll be reviewing the second thing that I bought at SakuraCon 2011, and that's S.H.Figuarts Masked Rider Dark Kiva. This is the S.H.Figuarts incarnation of the fourth and final rider in the Kamen Rider Kiva TV series. It includes the figure plus the accessories which you see in front of you. I'm just going to zoom in and show you them a little closer. So what he's got is the Zanvat sword prior to having Zanvat bat attached, the decoder in butte mode, and 3 extra pairs of hands besides his normal fists. They're relaxed hands, gripping hands, and what I like to call Kiva pose hands. Kiva pose hands. So we can start off by taking a look at the figure itself in detail. So here it is, up close. As you can see, the first detail that stands out is this nice glossy red plastic, glossy red paint. It's the same that they use on things like the Kabuto Zector. And you see, nice sculpting detail all along. We'll start from the head, which is a different head from what the rest of the body is, which is the design of Masked Rider Dark Kiva is just slightly modified from Kiva Emperor form. The main difference being the head design, which has these green compound eyes, has the silvered mouth and jaw, the forehead jewel, which is green with a little gold ring around it, has these black bat ears sticking out from the sides, which is, the main change that was made to the helmet, plus gold on the inside of the bat wings. Moving down, we have the chest area, which, with this part, which is the Hell's Breast, which for Kiva came from the Hell's Gate that was on his right leg. You can see it has black detailing with the 3 layered sections, the 3 green orbs. And they do separate off this third one for the ab crunch. It has some gray molded in detail. That's, detail that's painted over with a gunmetal gray. His shoulders, nicely painted and detailed in. Move separately from, they are on a hinge that go up and down, free from the shoulder itself. Moving down, we have the arms, which move into these kind of gauntlets, which are not too limited because this part kind of extends out like this and doesn't cover the whole thing and impede the arm's articulation too much. Actually, it doesn't really impede. Have the silver wristbands and the fists that are, I'll go into articulation later. Moving down to the waist, we have Kivat Bat II on the Dark Kivat belt, and Kivat Bat II is removable. He's fully painted and pretty detailed. They even put molded in detail on the inside of the wings, just like you'd see on the toy. And they put all the mold detail they needed to onto the power roost of the Dark Kivat belt. And it does attach right on back. Just snaps into place like that. On each side, you have the fweslots, which have the fwessels molded and painted in there. On the right side, we have Dark Kiva's Wake Up Fwessel, Duran Fwessel, and Braun Fwessel. And on the other side, we have the Garulu Seal, Basha Seal, and Dogga Seal Fwessels. And the fweslots do come out, but that's not really supposed to, so you can just plug them right back into the sides. showing his back now. We've got this part, which is basically what holds the cape parts in place, and I guess I said parts. There is molded and painted in detail right here, which is a very small space, and it's hard to see unless you're looking at it from a very specific angle. So, props to that. The cape here is a double cape, which are on two different joints, which I will go into a little bit later. His legs are equally painted and detailed, with the main legs being black with the red armoring on the sides, and going down even further, completely surrounding the foreleg. Has these claw-like, these kind of talon-like shoulder pieces, which more serve a purpose for Kiva when he's in flight style, but it's a design feature that's carried over to the dark Kiva suit. Has the forelegs, which do share similarity to the forearms in terms of how they're armored. Have the anklets, which are painted on both sides, with silver on the inside and following this black pattern on the outside. Then you have the feet, which are not too special in terms of the detail. Has the right paint and has this little spike on the back, which is a detail that's supposed to be there. And that's about it for the detailing. Now onto articulation. This thing has what you could call the standard articulation for S.H.Figuarts, with a little bit more. The head is on a full ball joint. Can rotate 360, but you can say this part is a little blocking it. It does have a neck joint, but it is one of those things where you'd have to really dig in your finger because the head moves separately from the neck, so it really isn't very easy to move the neck unless you're moving it side to side with the head. The arms have upward shoulder rotation, upward shoulder movement, and that ball joint shoulder that is typical of Figuarts. Thankfully, as you do see, the shoulder pad hinge is good for the clearance of the arm. The arm rotates full 360 degrees. Has a bicep swivel right there. Has what seems to be, well, basically a single jointed elbow, but that's mainly because there's not much clearance with, well, there's not too much elbow clearance with this particular design. And has the wrist rotation plus the hinge along here. And of course the same goes for the other arm, so I won't go over that. The ab crunch is a, where there would be an ab crunch. I mean, obviously it's supposed to be, judging by the way that's designed, but it's just kind of limited in what it does. However, there is a little bit of a waist joint, as you can see there and there, but it does seem to be a little hindered by the belt, because you can hear a little bit creaking as I try to turn the waist. And legs are the more typical style these days, which is the extending stem that allows for more movement. Just like so. Has a double jointed knee, and a good thing about that is that the design of the lower leg makes for good clearance, as can be seen there. The ankles are ball jointed, and of course has the possibly necessary but what I consider generally unnecessary toe joint, because toes don't really move like that. But that's something that's typical of Figuarts, and I'm not going to bother too much about it. And the final bit of articulation is for the cape, which moves out on these swivel hinges, and there's an additional set of accessories that I already have in there, which are cape extensions. You can see as these second pieces to the cape, which just fold out easily along with the cape. And I did this prior to the review because when you're putting them in, it's a little bit of a struggle, and so I prefer to just have them in there and not have to take them out. And the effect works pretty well, since it makes a nice smooth curve, and it does have the same kind of detailing where it's molded so that like it moves like a real piece of cloth, not exactly staying fully flat, having a little bit of rumbles and creases here and there. And that's the articulation. Now, I will say that an ab crunch would be nice, but I guess with this kind of design, it's not completely necessary. I mean, another thing I'd like to note is that all the joints on here are very tight. The only thing that's a little bit loose is the head, but that's really more of a smooth movement than being loose, because it doesn't wobble, but it can be moved freely quite easily. As for the rest of the joints, they're all very tight, so whatever pose you put him in, he's going to hold the pose. Now, I guess one thing I should note about the accessories is that with these accessories, this figure represents all three users of the Dark Kiva suit. That being the Fangar King in 1985, or 1986, 1986. Taiga Nobori, who was formerly Kamen Rider Saga, and as such uses this. And these hands representing Otoya Kurenai, father of Wataru Kurenai, or Kiva, in the present story. Now, the interesting thing about coming with this is that while this was in the show, Dark Kiva never used it, because before we ever got to see him transform into Dark Kiva, the King of Anger threw us into the wall of Castle Doran, where it was stuck for years until it was rediscovered in the present story. So, it's this nice long sword, has a black handle with little bits of gold detailing all the way, and a little bit at the top with some red paint. And the sword the sword's blade is interesting because it's clear plastic, but it's got bits of silver painted all along it, which is a fairly unique design for a sword, and pretty interesting. As you can see, it is really transparent and painted over. And secondly, we have the J-quarter, which is a bit simpler, but it's a good indicator of how when this was first released, the creation of this was a good indicator of how there is currently going to be a Figuarts Masked Rider saga. So they've got all the detail they need to on the handle, which is primarily white, but it does have this little bit of blue painted right here. And the part that's used for attacking is this stiff translucent red plastic. It's a little bendy, but for the most part it keeps its shape. And just to show you how they're held, you really just fit them into the hands, like so. Now for the hand swapping, it's pretty simple. I mean, as with all Figuarts, you just pull the hand off of the ball joint, and you gotta find where you want to put, that is, how you want the bend to go, which is generally done by finding where the bend is and then attaching the hand while it's a little bit bent. Though you might want to be a bit careful, especially with this figure, because points like these are actually sharp. So you want to be careful not to poke yourself too badly. So I'm just going to switch him to the relaxed hands and then get him in pose. Then we can wrap up the review. Or so say I can. So, once again, finding the ball joint, getting the swivel and positioning it right, like so. Okay. So as you see, we've got the hands in just like that. So I'm just gonna do a kind of simple king pose. We're gonna position the legs. Just raise the arm a little bit. Just bear with me here. I'm not going to be talking too much while I'm doing the posing because I don't want to lose my concentration. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna fill it with cape a little. Filling with the arm. Let's see. Okay. Just gonna get him standing upright. Okay. Okay, now just sort back out the accessories. It's there. And yeah, like I said, sorry for being a little bit quiet for this last part. I've basically gone over what I need to, so I'm just finishing this off with a pose. Okay. Those. And lastly, these. So yeah, here I have him, and I guess what you call the typical Dark Kiva pose, where he's raising his arm, saying to whoever his opponent is to become extinct. And that's basically it for Dark Kiva. I gotta say that this is a really good figure. This is one of their new releases, and compared to the first figure I got, which was, well, the first Kamen Rider figure I got, which was Kiva Titan form, which was one of the earlier releases, they have improved. Noticeably, they have, and this guy has a great amount of accessories. It's good that he represents all three incarnations of Dark Kiva, or all three users. And the joints are all tight, the paint detailing is spot on, he has all the articulation he needs to be, and the cape extensions, while not completely necessary, are a nice bonus. Even if they're a bit of a hassle to put on. And let me just say, if you put on the cape extensions, make sure to get them on the right side, and make sure that they're in there good. And I really suggest, if you're gonna put them in there, don't try to take them out, because if you're gonna try to put them back in there, you'll probably have the same amount of difficulty. So if you're gonna have the cape extensions, then just keep them in. As for how I got this figure, this is the first time that I actually have seen any S.H.Figuarts at a convention. And the thing is that there was a special booth that exclusively sold figures from Bandai and Tamashii Nations, which makes things like S.H.Figuarts, SIC, and the Robot Spirits. And I'm not sure how many conventions that seller goes to, but it did seem pretty important, because they really did put in detail. They even had some display cases which showed off figures that haven't been released yet, things like O's Latarata and Sagozo. And they had other figures there, like O's Tatoba and Gatakiriba. They had Kiva Emperor form. I think they had Faiz. They had Double Cyclone Joker and Fang Joker. They had one of the first / the next Riders. And I also think they had Decayed Violent Emotion. So they had a lot of the newer releases. I picked out this one because out of all of them, I personally think that the design of Kiva Emperor form works a little bit better for Dark Kiva, especially with the color scheme. It kind of gives off the feeling of being like a vampire knight, and not like the manga Vampire Knight, like, you know, it's like a vampire-themed knight armor. Especially with the deep red and the black, it works really well to convey the vampire theme. So, in that sense, I kind of like the Dark Kiva design better than the Kiva Emperor form design. And overall, this is a highly recommended figure. If you like Dark Kiva, any of the three Dark Kivas, then I'd really recommend getting this. And, you know, even if you're a Kiva fan, also get this, because when it comes to Kiva, most of the figures for Kiva came from the old Socha Kenshin line. So really, the fact that there are, you know, a few Figuarts Kiva figures out there is a good thing, and they put detail into them. So definitely recommend it. Definitely recommended. Though I guess when it comes down to Kiva Emperor form or Dark Kiva, that would be a matter of personal preference. For me, I got Dark Kiva. For you, it might be Kiva Emperor form that more suits you, or that you like better. So, if you're going to choose from one of those two, I suggest mostly getting one or the other because they're very similar. They're very similar figures, just with slight differences. So, if you're gonna get one of those two, maybe you should get. I mean, you might just want to get only one of them, and if you do, that's up to personal preference. So yeah, overall, highly recommended figure. And sorry for all this talking and not really moving the figure, but I just want to go and explain things better. So, please rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my blog at krx50.blogspot.com. And for now, this is krx50, writing off.